All right, guys, I've got one more piece of art to finish up with for this 20th century number one. This will be 20th century number 1A. I wanted to talk to you about a Russian artist named Varvara Stepanova. She was a really interesting artist because she worked uh, as part of the kind of propaganda machine for the government. Um, so she was a collage artist, except for she used photo montage. So she put a variety of different photographs together and printed words, newspaper clippings, that kind of thing. Um, and it was an important art form in Russia that took off after the revolution that deposed the Tsar and was when Lenin took over. Um, Varvaranova was a talented painter and photographer. She considered herself to be a constructivist and created her artwork in the service to the ideals of the Soviet Union. Interestingly, she did a great deal of work for the USSR in Construction, a magazine that supported Stalin even through his rather brutal regime. And the main audience for this magazine was not Russian people. Interestingly, it was Western. It was a Western audience. It was a piece of propaganda intended for the Western world. So this is the work that's on the AP. This is called "The Result of the First Five-Year Plan, 1932." Um, and yeah, it's a pretty interesting thing. This one is all about the success of Stalin's first five-year plan and how successful this five-year plan had been. And of course, those of you who are historians will know that Stalin actually did not have a very successful five-year plan. She constructed this to make it look, make it look like people were behind him and everybody was rallying for him, and it was great progress, and that the world, Russia was moving forward with technology, etc. But in fact, this was not true. She constructed it to make it look fantastic. Um, so so let's think about this image, and maybe what I'll do is ask you for this. This is the only piece I'm going to talk about on this last video. Um, what elements in this did she put in this to make Stalin and his program look very successful? And there's some obvious elements, and then there's some less obvious elements. And think about things like color, think about composition, think about scale of different things. I want you to think about all of those things. And so what elements are here to build this story, this propaganda story? And the other thing, I want you to think about is that this kind of art is happening at the same time as we're seeing Dada artists who are making art against any sort of political thing. And they're talking about against the propaganda that's coming out of politics, out of countries. It's very interesting to see that this is coexisting. And some of you might have noticed that there was a really beautiful painting, actually, a Chinese painting that happens later, and that artist in China also follows the kind of the Russian style of painting. That one came later, but it is interesting to think that these different propaganda machines worked and were influenced by each other. So go ahead and answer. Just give me one element that shows that tells the message. What's the element? How does it tell the message about how successful Stalin and his program was? And while you do that, and then come back in the last little bit is about this five-year plan. Yeah, no, it wasn't a success. Farmers were forced to leave their lands. Many people starved. They thought that they would be able to do mass-produced farms, but that did not work. Poverty was widespread, and the propaganda went from a message of hope for the future to an attempt to hide the horrible political mess that this first five-year plan had created, and the disaster that it was for the Russian people. kind of interestingly. All right, that's the end, and so not too much to do for Friday, and the main pieces will on this podcast and the last, or this video and the last one, will be included in our conversation on Wednesday. You guys have a great weekend.